I'd like to call to order the Monday, August 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District. Due to abundance of caution and with regard to the spread of COVID-19 and in accordance with Governor Cuomo's March 12th Executive Order number 202, tonight's meeting is being held in the District Administration Building via Zoom and YouTube. Next on the agenda will be the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of meditation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the financial update. The Board of Education acknowledges the Treasurer's Report for May 2020. President's Report. Two major items on tonight's report. Just a quick review of graduation that we held Friday night. I think it was a wonderful job by all. I think a lot of good positive feedback from everyone. We made the best of the situation that we could. The graduates were very happy to do it in person. We were glad to accommodate that. I'd like to commend the administration, right down to everybody there that helped pitch in, all the way down to the nurses up front.
Awesome job.
Awesome job by everybody. I also commend the Board of Education members for holding out and unanimously together to hold that graduation for them. A lot of positive responses all weekend. At the end of graduation, we said goodbye to Mr. Huntsman. We wish him the very best luck in the future. He really helped us out the last 2 years, and we really appreciate that. Segueing to a new beginning for Jennifer Martin, and we wish her all the best. I think she has a bright future. Obviously, we submitted our reopening plans. Mr. Carter, Mr. Connor will give us an update there later. I know that was a lot of work, and we appreciate all your work on that as well. We know the situation is fluid. Could be fluid as early as this week with Governor Cuomo. I think everybody will have to work together to adapt and adjust as we have to during the whole month here. And finally, the superintendent search is the survey is live this morning at 8 o'clock. You can access that on our website. The survey is online and goes straight to our search firm, Strategic Educational Alliance. Advantage, excuse me. Also on the website is the timeline. Next on the agenda is the legislative update. Martha? Martha, you're going to unmute first.
Sounds like Amy Finkelstein.
So I think she has to do it. Just click on the red microphone, Martha, where your picture is up top.
Mike.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I received the advocacy update, and the legislature has been hesitant to take any significant financial relief legislation, hoping they're trying to wait it out to see if the federal government helps out. NISBA has stated that they will continue to advocate for legislation dealing with a number of issues that are important to school district to cover expenses, prospective expenses, that having to do with the reopening of schools. And lastly, NISBA has stated that they have made plans to advocate strongly at the virtual conference of the federal level to get more money for us. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you, Martha. Next on the agenda is the superintendent report. Mr. Scott.
Okay. Thank you, President Pucci. You've already touched on graduation. It was a very nice event, extremely well done. The fellow was there to be the CEO and commented to me that he's done many in New Jersey and felt that whoever put that together, and that was Jimmy Quinlan, did a fantastic job. So, you know, congratulations to Jim, but everything from the organization of it, I thought there were many hands and people did a really good job, top to bottom. So I think for having a graduation like that, first of all, I want to say I'm glad that we waited as long as we did. I know I spoke with a couple of the graduating seniors the night before, and they were anxious to just get it over, and I get that. I know Menacek, our neighbors, they did Thursday, Friday, so we weren't the only ones out there, and theirs was similar to ours, but it was certainly worth the effort. Everything from top to bottom with Bella and the class president to the speeches and Tom Weitzman's comments. I love the way he weaved, you know, Jimmy Quinlan in there and also Jim Martin. So it was really nice. I think that just speaks volumes for Jen, that you take a whole day and sit out there. I think if I were her, I might have made it 10 o'clock in the afternoon. So I got to go home and put my suntan lotion on. But it was a hot day for those of you that were there. It got warmer and warmer, and yeah, the 8 o'clock was really nice. And so that ended up to be a terrific program. Many parents who I saw the way out just commented how appreciative they were and how thankful they were that at least the kids got to be together, part of them, and be part of what is a normal graduation as much as it could be. So yeah, great job by all. Just want to make a few other comments before we talk about the reopening plan. School calendar, we'll be having a conversation. You'll be getting some information through Maureen, that we know that with this whole pandemic thing we're going through, we're going to have to adjust our calendar. And that's really very typical of all the schools around the state. What would have been a one-day opening, hey, welcome back sort of thing, we're going to use that first 4 days, September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. We'll use that to bring people in, answer any questions they might have, staff, get people really situated, acclimated to being back. Because let's not forget, as much as I know the kids have really struggled with all this, I know that around a number of faculty too, that just coming back, this is going to be stressful. And as President Pucci said, I'm smiling is because we've all learned from March 15th on that it is very fluid and that this thing can change overnight. If you listen to Governor Cuomo this morning, and his comments were about, you know, it's really going to be up for parents to decide if in fact they want their children to come back to school. He would like to see schools open, but yet he wants it to be a safe environment for students and staff. So, you know, he's kind of walking the fine line, but I think he also, as President Pucci said, I think he will. He's very capable of waiting it. He could go a week before this all starts and then decide that. And by the way, the numbers that I heard today from New York State were all very encouraging. So, you know, he certainly, whatever happened in New York State during that period of time, we have low numbers and low incidents and, you know, a death is too many, but there was only 3, I think he said today, so, 3 is way too many too, so. But, anyway, too, I'm not sure if the board, I'm gonna switch over to my next item. I'm not sure if the board's aware that long time, and I apologize if you already know this, but long time mock trial coach, and he was the real wheels behind this organization. You know, he's the one that got us to, you know, championship after championship. He's also the one that got us to regionals most of the time. He's the one that really got us to the States. For 1 year that he was not on the sidelines, we didn't get out of the counties. This guy was mock trial coach for 35 years, Mark Stern. And Mark passed away several weeks ago. And, you know, it's a big loss, huge loss for our mock trial team. You know, I can't imagine how many young kids he influenced and how many students came from mock trial and became lawyers. Lost for our mock trial team, and you know, we'll miss Mark. So next, I would like to speak to the reopening plan. I know I've heard from many parents, and I share with their anxieties and their frustrations. And I do know that we all went into this knowing that, you know, one shoe is not going to fit all. And if anything, what we've done is we've put together what I think is the very, very best plan you could possibly come up with. The board has a copy of that in front of you tonight. There's also it's on the website. But what I like about our plan, and I'm going to ask Mr. Carter to speak more about this, what I like about our plan is that you might not be happy and thrilled about coming back here or sending your kids to school, but from everything from cafeteria to buses and what happens if somebody, and we've spent tens of thousands of dollars in buying equipment where, you know, staff and students will walk through and we'll know their temperature instantaneous. You know, what happens, procedures are in place. So I believe that a lot of answers to questions and concerns, I'm not going to say this is going to eliminate your frustrations, your anxieties. I get it, I understand it. I have 3 grandchildren. They're in schools around the state and I worry about them all the time. So I understand, I share in that, and I just want them to know that as a district, we've worked extremely hard in putting together what we thought was about as good a plan as we could go with here. And all that could change. In a week or so, it could change. So a lot of really good information. Certainly, as the governor stated today, and it's in our plan, it's a parent choice. It comes down to that. Look, do I believe our kids need to be in schools? Absolutely. But they need to be in an environment that's as safe as possible. And that's what we try to do, and as often as possible. For some districts that are 500 students or less, this is an easy one. But for a place like Goshen with 3,000 kids or more, we would really need on average of about 50 or 60 more classrooms. And nobody's going to build 50 or 60 more. Newburgh, Middletown, my colleagues over there, Monroe, Woodbury, they're going through what they're going through because they would need in excess of 125 more classrooms. Just no place to put it. So, look, if you're trying to look at this apples to apples and oranges, you're not going to get it. It's just not going to happen. But I respect anyone, the decision they make. I totally respect that. We will work with you every way we can. I want to commend our technology department, Jim Stair, Jonathan Redeker, for the great job that they're doing in really getting this so that we're live streaming. And we talked at great length today about, you know, if you're at home and you're getting questions, you have a question, your child does, then how does that teacher get that question? Well, we got that figured out too. So it's only gonna cost the board another 20,000. No, I'm just kidding. But with that, a guy that really has done a tremendous amount of work with this and deserves a lot of credit, and the administrative team that really stepped up. And I don't mean just building principals. I mean the guys like Al Mowinkle and our transportation supervisor, Jim Riley, and this was no small lift. This was quite a lift. And I think we had a window of about 2 weeks. And they were off, pretty much like it's been since day one. But group came together, did an extremely good job. And I want to thank Jason Carter publicly for the great job he did and his great effort. And so with that, it's all yours, Mr. Carter.
All right, so regarding the reopening plan, it really was a great collaborative effort. We had some really beneficial stakeholder meetings to begin, along with all of the surveys that we sent out. And in a very systematic way, we began with the focus questions and then move forward to, surveys with select choices to be made. That information, in addition to the hard work of the stakeholder groups, and we did run 6 stakeholder group meetings at length, not just 30-minute meetings, but rather long meetings. So we were able to collect a lot of information and utilize that as our leadership team came together to make some of these difficult choices. I will tell you that there were many options on the table when we began. I know Mr. Pucci was a part of that, so he understands the intricacies of the process, and he's been a part of going through multiple options, multiple programs. Certainly not an easy task, but I will tell you that we approached it with great compassion for our community members, trying to find the correct groupings, understanding that the intricacies of mixed families and children who have last names that begin, with D's and those that end in G's and they are living together, or Z's rather, and the need to make sure that we can accommodate a family and not have fragmented schedules for them. Again, just one of the difficulties that we had, but in this approach, I believe that we put together something that can work, for the majority of our community members and our students. More importantly, there are many concerns that our community members have emailed in, talking about sanitizing, deep cleaning, along with the groupings. We've been assured and reassured multiple times by Jim and his group that, his group is working so hard to get this right. And I do believe that they'll be able to actually do a deep cleaning, each night, each evening in preparation for the next day. We've covered our professional developments on Wednesday, which I'll talk about as I move into my assistant superintendent's report a little bit later on. But there were all these things on the table that we wanted to focus on and do the best that we can, especially for our at-risk students, our special education population, our ENL population. Very, very proud of our administrative team, our principals, assistant principals, our directors, transportation, food services, as Mr. Connor had mentioned, special education, all the building principals, everyone came together, buildings and grounds, and we all weighed in and we all tried to make it work together. I think we did really well as a cohesive unit, which is important. And as I had said a few times, I believe we have a plan that will work. It is fluid and dynamic. It can change at the drop of a dime. And we actually wrote that in the language stating that the remote plan itself may have to change, as could the hybrid as far as the remote delivery. Many great efforts in trying to provide the best that we can by way of technology. Again, in working with Jim and John, we've had many conversations, so deep that we've considered, even Bluetooth headsets above the ear and in the ear preferences for teachers so that they could be comfortable and provide students with something that is as close to authentic as possible given the circumstance. So these are the conversations that are ongoing, even with the plan on paper. We're still in a planning phase of trying to tweak and now at this point polish what we have written. So I believe that will continue. And I believe that we will be able to adapt as we receive feedback throughout this process. So, we will wait and see what our governor says as far as the reopening itself and what that will absolutely look like in September. And I truly hope that we can provide the absolute best for our students and our community members. So I'd like to thank the board right now for all the support that you provided and, helping us to put this together. And it's been a long haul, and it's certainly not over yet, but thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Connor and our administrative team for all their support throughout as well.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. The board has also received through its email concerns about the reopening. To reiterate what Superintendent Connor has said, I think we understand. I do think we understand the concerns. Obviously, with 2,800 kids or so, there's going to be different views on which is the best options. I think we're all on the same page. We want to do what's best for the kids in the most safe environment we can provide. I've used this word a lot, but it's going to be fluid. I think we're, understanding concerns because of the fluidity. We're going to have to be nimble, adaptive, adjustable. And I think what's good about our plan is it does provide choice. And I think that's hopefully we can continue to do. I do one quick question. We had talked about the possibility of one-to-one with the computers and Chromebooks. Have we looked into that a little bit to see? I'm thinking that could be one less concern for the families at home with this sanitation and one less thing for them to do at night.
Sure.
Sanitation.
So we've had some great conversation, namely conversations that I've had individually with John Redeker and Jim Sterrett, and I know, we have a little bit of work to do with collecting what went out during the remote session to be able to distribute to the correct pods, if that makes sense, because what I mean by that is that some of the Chromebooks, for instance, from Scotchtown may have landed in the hands of middle school students simply because we went through a distribution phase and we just had to grab something to get it out. So, we're kind of going through a plan now to retrieve what we handed out, go through sanitation and repair if necessary, and then redistribute. So we don't see that as a problem at all. There's some small questions that we're looking into regarding the one-to-one, but I don't think that any of us in central office believe that it would be a problem to get into a true one-to-one if necessary. The reality is that, we understand that even according to our surveys that not every student needs one, but the opportunity will be there. Again, there are so many things, and I don't want to overlook anything, nor do I want to go on and on forever, but it's right down to accessibility and Wi-Fi capabilities. As I had said previously, we worked with T-Mobile for government pricing and secured mobile hotspots to distribute. And we do have the ability to enable and disable those, based on use, and everything is governed by our policies, our use policies. So we even have that to distribute if necessary. So, we will have a plan in place to make sure that it gets in the hands of those that need it, and continue to monitor that and work with our families throughout the closure, if there is one.
Got a question that came in just popped in my head here. Can they bring their own Chromebook?
So remember, years ago, not years ago, but very recently, we were a bring your own device district. So I know that is capable, but there are a lot of, policies at play when it comes to that. So personally, I think it would be, much better for us to hand out the Chromebooks that are already set up for our systems on the network, programmed with, limited capabilities by way of what is educationally sound. Not that we're not trusting of our students, but, we have a very unique way of monitoring, and I think it's much easier to be able to do that. But again, these are the things that we can have discussion about and choose which way we would like to go.
Yeah, that makes sense though.
If we had to go to one-to-one, drop that one-to-one, do we have enough Chromebooks?
So, I would say yes, right off the cuff. However, I know that there are a few that have to be repaired, maybe more than a few that have to be repaired. And I also know that we have, let's say many Chromebooks in a closet that are ready for deployment that just need to be, set up with maybe a Wi-Fi module, so on and so forth. So can we do it like that? Maybe not, but can we do it like that? Probably. So the long and short of it is, with just a little bit of work, I believe we have enough devices for everyone in the district. The other piece of that is to monitor what our teaching staff might need. Because if the entire state goes to a remote learning or a hybrid learning, they may have children that need devices and are using their personal devices, and we want to avoid the sharing cycle as well for ease of use and accessibility at home. So we have that in mind as well.
Hey, Jason, what do you think about maybe taking a survey with some of the families that already have a laptop, iPad, or desktop that can support, distance learning from their house, instead of providing a Chromebook, and just, giving the people that really need the Chromebook a Chromebook, and, maybe some type of internet access.
So I don't see an issue with someone using a personal device at their home for the purpose of remote learning. What I was referring to is the one-to-one cycle, where it would be used even at school, a personal device at school if necessary. A personal device at home on their own network, getting into Google Classroom. I don't believe that would be an issue. Again, we would just review our policy, our board policy regarding acceptable use, and reiterate those things and move forward if necessary.
I guess the question is, maybe if we do go that way, maybe we'd have a sign up. If you need it, you sign up for it. Some people might not need it, especially if they're remote learning. They might use it on their home.
What we did from March, I'd say March to June, because it was ongoing to a larger degree, but really like the first 3 to 4 weeks, we had signups going out for the principals, and everything was logged and tracked that way. So we are able to do that.
Okay. Great.
Maybe we should have a tech meeting, maybe to go over some of your guys' concerns, the administration, if there's anything the board can do to try to help. Just a thought. If you guys think we need that, let us know, please.
Yeah, I would think a technology committee meeting is appropriate, just to create awareness with our board members that are on the committee, just to talk about most of the things that we're already talking about, and to answer any questions that might pop up. So I'll organize that. I'll reach out to see what calendars look like, and we'll get to that quickly.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Do you want to continue? We'll have to pause Louise for a second. You want to continue on your roll?
Sure. Just really 2 more things. In no particular order, I'll just talk about where we're at with professional development. I know that I continue to talk about it, but I do think it's important given the current state of our district and what we're trying to achieve here in preparation. So just an idea of what July held for us. We had 18 professional development opportunities offered, all surrounding or revolving rather around the tools that we had selected. And with a duplicated count, we had 336 participants take part in the 18 professional development opportunities, including Google Bootcamp, which could very well lead to Google Level 1 certification. So I'm very happy to see that number. And although it is, or maybe duplicated counts, it still shows that there's great interest in the tools and platforms that we're bringing in. But more importantly, it's creating the teachers and teacher aides and teaching assistants. It's helping to allow them to utilize these in a more comfortable realm. So I think that's very important. And now in August, I know we've just entered August, but currently we have 15 professional development opportunities planned on the books. We already have 98 participants enrolled. So again, I think that proves that what we're offering is very beneficial. I've just spoken with Jonathan Rediger this morning to talk about, again, where we're going with the parent professional developments to help support their learners at home, to be a part of, the greater picture, the team, the educational team at home. So we are planning that, but we were really waiting to see, what our plan would come to in a finalized form to create more targeted professional development opportunities for our parents. So that is definitely in the works. I know also Matt O'Brien is working diligently with Lynn Abrams and the health staff, to be sure that we're ready for a lot of the mental health initiatives that we already have in place and what those professional development opportunities might look like. So I wanted to be sure to mention that, because within our plan, there will be throughout the school day mental health breaks, just to do check-ins, mini lessons, and so on, to give our students some coping skills and to really continue to take the pulse and temperature, not literally, but to continue to take the pulse and temperature of our faculty and staff members along with our students, to be sure that we're well aware of what's going on and to adapt to it quickly, really to address the needs of all. So that is in the plan as well. Any questions on the professional development? And also this evening, you have in front of you a request for a textbook approval, not really a textbook, but rather, call it a supplemental piece, if you will, for the English department at the high school. So Mrs. Baker and her department have presented this book here, How to Read Literature Like a Professor. I believe that the goal here is to get this into, primarily the summer reading assignment group, but also to refer back to it throughout the school year in preparation for the AP exam. Namely, this talks an awful lot about what we would refer to as your close reading, really helping our students to dive deeply into the text, whatever it may be, multiple genres, to be able to pull out finer details, which will then allow our students to better prepare written work in response, which is a large focus of our APs. So I'll pass this around and take a brief look. I'll go this way because there's less of a gap. And that is the proposal from the high school English department.
Here's a quick, the AP exams last year, how did that, taking those in a modified form?
So, yes, computer-based, I believe. We heard of a few glitches here and there. However, I would want to be sure that I reported back to you as accurately as possible. So I can certainly dig into that a little bit deeper for you. But I know as far as remote testing, there were the finer details of it that may have had to have been worked out, like students, having glitches within the system for submitting a response. And in turn, as it was just spinning, time was running out, things of that nature. But I don't believe that any of us were largely affected in a negative sense by it. Absolutely.
I was talking about that. I thought about our new program that we're doing with Syracuse and Siena and things like that. Because of all this changing schedules and colleges' schedules, anything that's been delayed there, or?
No, the most important piece of all is that when dealing with Project Advanced SUPA or Siena, whatever it may be, Orange, we operate on their schedule. So whatever format they choose and whatever that looks like is what we honor, because that is the agreement that we have. So I've not been contacted by anyone, from the high school or one of the colleges or universities within the program to talk about any negative impact either. So, if I do hear anything, I will be sure to let Mr. Connor know, and of course report back to the board. But at this point, I don't see anything. Really what we're looking for now is to continue to generate that interest level and to continue to expand our area at all time.
Right. Great, thank you.
Sure.
Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Ms. Louise Lynch.
Good evening. I hope you can all hear me?
Again.
Great. So the first couple of items I'd like to report upon are the audits. We had the internal auditor in last week who did their field work on the audit area for the 1920 budget, and we are anticipating a draft soon. As soon as we have that draft, we will be scheduling an audit committee so we can go over the draft findings. So I'm hoping that to be giving you and sharing that information with you in the very near future. Today was the first day of the external audit. They came in today and they began their field work, and they will be in all week, securing all the information. Of course, this is a little bit different than the conventional times, but we expect a very similar outcome as to what we've seen in prior years. One thing that I want to go on record as saying is that I do anticipate that we will have less fund balance from the current school year than we've had in the past, based on the unprecedented number of unanticipated expenditures, primarily relative to COVID. One of the things that you may have heard about is there are two potential funding sources for COVID. One of those is FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Grant Program, and we have gone to great lengths to apply for that and to retain paper, and we are tracking that. But as we heard a little bit earlier from Martha, that is dependent upon the federal government giving the state money. But we are monitoring that closely, and we are also exploring the CARES funding, which is just under $300,000 for the district. So any COVID-related expenses, we hope to secure additional funding from those sources that will maybe make us a little bit more whole. It won't be 100% because the FEMA grant is 75% reimbursement. But we are exploring all options, and I want the board to be aware of that. You have some claims auditor reports in front of you tonight. As you know, June is a very busy month. We have a lot of payments we're trying to get wrapped up into the final year. But it feels to me like the staff and the claims auditor and the process has gotten smoother as we've progressed through the year, and we've tightened up our processes a great deal, in my opinion. The next item on the agenda tonight is the remote collection of school taxes. This seems like a really appropriate time, given the COVID and what's going on, to attempt to collect taxes remotely. But we've tried to be very aware of everybody's needs, and some taxpayers are fine doing it online. Some have become very accustomed to coming into the office. So we are trying to communicate this and share information so that it goes over as well as can be expected. We are offering two options with the remote tax collection. One is through our local bank, which is Sterling Bank, and it will not cost the district anything directly. We will likely see a little bit less in interest. It's referred to as a float. We have to float a little bit more money through there in order for them to process our tax payments. The important thing there is that is a mail order, and you won't be able to just walk into the branch and drop off your tax payment. It is a mail only. We'll be sharing a lot of information about this on the website. Press releases are required, but you'll see a lot about this, and I welcome any suggestions you have on how to reach all of the members of our community. The second way that we anticipate remote collection is through an online portal where people can sign in and pay by credit card. The district will still collect the full amount of taxes. The taxpayer will bear the cost of any credit card transaction fee, but we felt it was really a good time to offer some options there. So stay tuned, you'll hear some more about this. And the last item on my agenda is about the budgetary transfers you have before you tonight. And always at the end of the year, you're seeing some transfers. We're trying to fund a number of things, pay off a number of things. One of the transfers you have in front of you tonight is about the GTA retirement incentive that will save us money in future years, but it did cost us more than we had budgeted. And you also see some other very COVID-related expenses. And that is merely a accounting procedure so that we can charge those to the grant. You know, a year and a half ago when we developed the 1920 budget, we didn't have any COVID codes. So those are new codes for tracking purposes. I don't know if there are any questions for me or any discussion.
Any questions, please?
What would some of the COVID-related expenses be? She can't hear me.
I'm sorry, say that again, please. I had feedback.
I think the question is what would be some of the COVID-related expenses be?
Okay, so I am applying as many items to COVID as I can, such as, let's see, if we need to buy additional Chromebooks, hotspots for student learning so that they have internet access, expenses relative to salaries earned that wouldn't have been earned in a normal year based on remote learning, any of those types of things, custodial sanitizing of the buildings. Should I keep going?
Okay, thank you, Lee.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Martha has a question. You got to unmute, Martha.
Martha, you have to hit the red icon next to your name and unmute.
Okay, am I unmuted?
There you go.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you. My question is the federal money means tested? In other words, are they going to look at high needs, low needs districts, or does this federal money that may come, is it just straight on what is needed or what?
Well, so I'm going to answer that with some speculation here, just because I'm learning. I've been to about 3 different grant seminars, all virtual, but I am going to apply as much to the federal grant as I can. Of course, when we see our annual audit, those expenditures will really hit our 1920 budget. The way I look at this is it's an opportunity to garner additional funding or revenue in a future year. But I haven't seen that there's a higher level of funding for high needs. What I've read and interpreted from the training sessions I've been to is that it's based on what we code as an expense. So certainly I want to be able to defend. Obviously, we would not have purchased hotspots for student remote learning if, we would use our Wi-Fi. But so I think it's based on what we code there, and certainly I want to be able to defend anything I coded there. Obviously, if we code expenses to something this year that we had in prior years, it could be questionable. I generally am very conservative, but I'm also I'm having a little bit of gray in my thinking here because it seems like an opportunity. And I'll be remiss if I don't say this. We know the state has to have a balanced budget. The federal government does not. We know about the discomfort between the federal and state government, but I'd really like to believe that the federal government is going to come out and support states, especially in such a severe needy time. But I will keep you posted. It feels, when I attended my training, what I learned is there's never been a federal declared disaster due to a medical condition that spanned the entire United States. So I get the impression that they're making it up as we go along to some degree, but I will continue to keep you informed.
Thank you. And then just on the tax collection, it's not possible to write a check to the tax collector and mail it to the tax collector. In other words,
you will be able to
mailing.
You will be able to write a check to the tax collector and mail it, but it will not go to the district. It will go to a Sterling branch, and it's like a drop box, and I believe it's in Westchester, and they process them there.
Okay, and we'll get all that information out to people, of course.
Yes, we will. And you will also be able to check your information online. You'll be able to see when you paid. You'll be able to print your own receipt if you have a printer handy. It's really automating it, and I think it will be very comfortable for a lot of people. I will be honest with you, I am concerned because there are some taxpayers that like to bring cash in, and cash is becoming a thing that nobody wants to touch anymore. It's like
Yes.
But I am worried about that, and I welcome feedback about how we can manage that and how we can communicate that, because my experience in doing this in other districts is with the appropriate communication, it is a little bit more seamless. Now, we know that we can put a lot of information out there, but not always are we able to make someone read it. You know, it's the old, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But so I'm very receptive to any feedback from the board or the community on how best to get this out there.
And then just one other question. If someone puts it on their credit card, you said there's a processing fee to put it on the card. I believe we need to make that clear to people too.
Yes, yes. I believe that the system that processes that lets you know that right up front. And I think you have to like check a box and maybe sign your name saying you understand that. But I agree with you, because we certainly don't want people to think that the school is benefiting from that fee. It's really just, you know, we all know that credit cards have transaction fees, and usually, you know, if you go to Macy's, Macy's pays the fee and they collect a little bit less. But I think you're absolutely correct. We need to ensure that people understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And no further questions. Thank you, Louise.
Welcome.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. I need a motion. Judy and Val? Be it resolved, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Michael Morrison, custodial worker, effective August 4th, 2020. Mr. Morrison has been with the district for 30 years. Be it resolved, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Ledger Preball, school bus driver, effective June 26, 2020. Mr. Preball has been with the district for 30 years. Be it further resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We do have some old business. 10.1, approve 2020-2021 board committees. I need a motion? Tom?
Raise my hand.
Oh, Mike? Yeah, Mike? Tom, Mike? Be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the list of board committees for 2020-21 school year as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New business, 11.1. I need a motion for approval of minutes and transcription for July 6, 2020 reorganization and regular meeting, and minutes for the July 13, 2020 executive session. Tom? Mike? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes and transcription for the July 6, 2020 reorganizational and regular board meetings, and the minutes for the July 13th, 2020 executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.2, approve issuance of CAN for Goshen Public Library. Got Judy and Mike.
Could I say something?
Yes.
I just want to say that I understand this is a loan, and I get it, we get it back in the checks and stuff like that. But this started out as a $50,000 loan. And then the next year it went up to $75,000. Everybody had a heart attack because it went up. And then to 100, now we're at 418.
Yeah.
And that's out of our money until September. Or October, right?
That is.
We have no choice.
September.
But what's causing it to go over the year? That's
A really nice building down the road.
Yeah, third budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes.
Martha?
I share Judy's concern about this issue.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
I got a motion. Okay. Be resolved, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the board president or the board vice president in the board president's absence to issue a tax anticipation note in the amount of $418,000 in anticipation of real property taxes to be received from the property owners of the Goshen Central School District for the benefit of the Goshen Public Library during the fiscal year of the school district commencing July 1st, 2020, and renewals thereof, if necessary. The note shall be issued on or about July 14th, 2020, for a period of approximately 48 days. Said note shall be sold privately to a bank to be determined at the prevailing interest rate, where it shall be redeemed upon maturity, which date shall not extend beyond the close of the applicable period provided in the local finance law for the maturity of such notes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
.3. Need a motion to approve individual agreements for special education services, sub-allocation of IDEA 611 and 619 funds. Judy and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into individual agreements with Abilities First, Jawanio, United Cerebral Palsy of Orange County, Center for Spectrum Services, and Learning Together to provide special educational services for students and for the district to sub-allocate IDEA 611 and 619 funds to said providers on a per-student basis for the school year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
11.4. Need a motion for approve agreement for special education services, upstate cerebral palsy. Huh? Jerry. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, Board of Education enters into an agreement with Upstate Cerebral Palsy to provide special educational services for students for the school year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed? 11.5. Approve agreement for special education services, Greenberg, North Castle School District?
Union Free School District.
Union Free School District. Greenberg, North Castle, Union Free School District. Jeremy, Martha. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into an agreement with Greenberg, North Castle, Union Free School District to provide special educational services for students for the school year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
11.6, need a motion to approve of agreement for nursing services, AccuCare Nursing. Jeremy, Judy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement for services with AccuCare Nursing to provide nursing services to a special education student effective July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 at a rate of $62 per hour for registered nurses and $52 per hour for licensed practical nurses. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All fair? Opposed? 11.7, approved service agreement with Sign Language Resources, Inc. Tom, Jeremy. Be it resolved, the Board of Education enters into a service agreement with Sign Language Resources, Inc. to provide sign language services for the Goshen Central School District in 2020-21 school year as follows. That's twice. Services between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays, $80 per hour. Services between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. weekdays, $90 per hour. Services between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. weekdays and anytime weekends or holidays, $100 per hour. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Approve 11.8. I need a motion for 11.8.
Yeah, Martha.
I didn't say anything. Approve agreement with Chester Union Free School District, my new favorite term, for summer food service program. Martha and Mike. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into an agreement to provide unitized meals, inclusive of milk, to Chester Union Free School District during the 2020 New York State Summer Food Service Program at the following prices. Breakfast, $1.90 each. Lunch, $3.41 each. All fair?
Aye.
Opposed? $11.9, in motion to approve lease between Goshen Central School District and Orange Ulster BOCES for C.J. Hooker lease. Jeremy and Judy. Be resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the board president to sign the lease agreement between Orange Ulster BOCES and the Goshen Central School District for office space at C.J. Hooker Middle School to house the interscholastic athletic coordinator in the amount of $9,192 for the 2020-21 school year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.10, need a motion to approve participation in BOCES Orange Rockland natural gas, fuel oil, and electric bids. Tom, Jeremy? Whereas the Goshen Central School District is participating with other Rockland and Orange County school districts in cooperative bids for the purchase of electricity and natural gas sponsored by the Rockland County BOCES. And whereas the bidding procedures comply in every aspect with the requirements established by the general municipal law, and whereas the electricity and natural gas markets are highly volatile, and prompt action is required to secure the benefit of the lowest possible rates. And whereas the The delay in waiting for formal action by this board may result in the loss of the bid prices. And whereas the board believes that it can establish reasonable limits on the power of the superintendent to act in the board's name and authority, subject to later ratification by this board, resolve that this board hereby delegates to the superintendent of schools the authority to accept bids for electricity and natural gas submitted pursuant to a cooperative bid on the following conditions. The annual ceiling price for electricity is 8 cents per kilowatt or less. B, the annual ceiling price bid for natural gas basis is $4 per BTU or less. And the annual ceiling price for natural gas commodity at the NYMEX Henry Hub is $3.95 per BTU or less. And it is further resolved that the superintendent is to report to this board in writing within 24 hours any action he has taken pursuant to this resolution. And it is further resolved that this delegation of authority may be revoked at any time by action of this board. All fair? Opposed? 11.11, approve budgetary transfers. Karen? Mike? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the following budgetary transfers. Accrual for COVID-related and unbudgeted expenses dated June 30, 2020, $450,076. Year-end accrual for incarcerated youth, June 30th, 2020, $364,059. School lunch salaries under budgeted, June 30th, 2020, $47,602. Foster tuition due to Middletown schools, also June 30th, 2020, $34,256. And accrue funds for expanded GTA retirement incentive, June 30, 2020, $139,435.87. All in favor?
Aye.
11.12, approve of supplemental memorandum of agreement with GTA Technology Support. Martha and Mike. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute a supplemental memorandum of agreement between the district and the Goshen Teachers Association dated July 15, 2020, regarding summer technology support provided by a GTA member. Said supplemental memorandum agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. All fair? Next on the agenda, board member issues. Judy?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple comments about two things we talked about tonight, just kind of throw my 2 cents in. First of all, this is an amazing document. Just looking through it and represents so much work. I can't imagine how hard all of you worked on this. I know we didn't have a choice, we had to do it, but it is, I just am very appreciative of all the work that went into it. It's done very professionally. The other thing, I just wanted to make a comment about graduation, or two. I'm really glad we waited until the last year end, because I know we were all hoping the governor would loosen up the numbers and so forth, but it really worked out well, and I thought every detail was thought about. It was just amazing to me, every detail. And I did not hear word one that was negative. And the time I was there and watched it on my computer, everybody was just seemed to be so happy about it and cooperating in every way. So I think it was really, really well done. And I think the kids were glad we waited, even though it was frustrating, because they were holding out hope they would have graduation, as with the parents. And I just think it all went very well. I'm glad we did it.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Judy. Next on the agenda.
Martha's raising her hand.
Oh, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Martha.
Yes, I'd like to first thank Jason for all the hard work on the reopening plan. And I just wanted to say too that the graduation was just wonderful. And I've heard some very, very positive comments about it. I was absolutely impressed. It was just a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Martha.
Welcome.
Next on the agenda is executive session. Any motion to go into executive session? Judy and Tom? Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent not to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for review of employment history of particular persons. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Martha, Mike, I think you gotta log into the Google Meet.
Yes. See you there.
I'm closing.
Are we done this for night?
Yeah, they're not gonna do it. Right? It's always good to get good positive.
Everyone's suntan on Friday. Oh, man.